Katie, Mike, Mr. Mitchell. I think this is my last meeting.
I believe
Hopefully.
you're right.
Bittersweet. Bittersweet. All right. I'd like to call to order the Fiscal Management Subcommittee meeting. Today, Thursday, October 22nd, 2020, at 5:47 p.m. In accordance with Governor Raimondo's executive order dated October 9th, 2020, the order number is 20-84. The Cumberland School Committee intends to conduct this meeting remotely. The public can participate in the meeting remotely, but not in person by calling 301-715-8592. The meeting ID is 965-989-3989, or join at the HTTP address listed under the events calendar on the district website, where the passcode is 963604. Thank you. Hello, Mrs. Friedman, welcome. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, which is in compliance with Governor Raimondo's order. Pleasure of the committee.
Motion to approve.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 3-0.
Sorry.
Next item on the agenda, approval of minutes. The minutes done are the 9:10 in the 8:10. So we're going to approve those minutes.
No, the other minutes for August 24th
August
and something else.
13th is in there as well.
It is? Okay, excellent. How about the September 20th?
Yes. Yes.
Approval of the minutes for 8:13, 9:10, 9:24, and 10:08. Pleasure of the committee.
Motion, we approve them.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. 3-0. Next item on the agenda is the payment of bills. Mr. DeMonica, could you please help me out on this, as I had to disconnect my second monitor because the sound wasn't working, and that's where I had the payment of bills.
I don't believe there are any payment
We
of
have
bills.
payment of bills.
We
No.
do? All right.
None tonight.
Excellent.
None tonight.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Prignano.
How are you, Ray?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, business office monthly reports. Mr. Prignano.
Yeah, we'll be getting out a report for the end of October now that our last meeting we amended our call it our summertime budget to a budget that more reflects what's happening now. We went from the 73,202,000 to the 74,548,000 budget. But what I did send out today, I sent that the other day. I sent that Cindy sent out that
Yes.
that process that we went through last time. And if you go to the last page of it now, I've added some things. This is such a fluid item. It's dated October 20th at the top, and you can see. Does everyone have that?
Yeah, give us a second to bring it up again.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I can't tell what you have because I'm on. I realize my internet hasn't. When I have to speak, isn't the best when I'm on, so I call in, so I can't see where you are.
What are we looking for, Alex, again?
The worksheet that Cynthia sent out that you guys approved at a last school committee meeting, taking the budget to up to the 74,548. If you scroll down it, I've added a page to it to see, just to show you how fluid this thing is right now.
I can't find it, or Mrs. Bernardo, if you guys find it, could you please send a copy?
I guess it was an email, Ray.
The email that you sent this week, do you want me to forward it to you?
Could you please, just for my
To
convenience?
both, could you do it to both of us, please?
I'm looking for it, but I'm struggling here.
I get so many emails.
And maybe I may have forgot to ask Cindy to put it in your folder. I'm thinking now. I know I emailed it to everyone so that they would have it.
Yeah, it wasn't in the folder, but it's in the email.
Yeah,
I sent it, guys.
yeah. I meant to ask her to include it in the folder, but if people have their email from me from a few days ago, it'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah, I could just. It's only a few lines. I can.
All right, go ahead,
walk you
Mr.
through it anyhow.
Pignano. Let's
Tell
go
you.
ahead, read from it, please.
Yeah. So our amended budget
Okay.
that we amended to was 74,548,419 at our last meeting. Since then, a few things have come up. For example, I got the BVP bill. They've gone from 407 students to 427 students. So that's going to require an additional $162,000 in the BVP line item.
Yeah.
All the other charter schools, however, have seen reductions from what we had. So all the other charters, which were budgeted at $537,000, are losing about $144,000 in tuition. So there'll be a 392 now, 392,544. So BVP goes up 162. All the other charters go down 144. So it's only about an $18,000 hit at this time. The Chromebooks, based on the recent news, we were putting 255,000 of the Chromebooks in our COVID relief money. We've now heard that end of November is likely when they may come in. I can't gamble on that. We only have to December 30th. I'm recommending at some point we're gonna pull those out of the COVID relief money and try to substitute other things in, and we would add that $255,000 back into our budget. Since the last meeting, we've added 3 full-time preschool TAs. We had moved to a part-time positions there, figuring that just the scheduling of the preschool where there's a morning and afternoon session, it kind of make, part-time TAs would work out. HR and special ed have had trouble finding people that are interested in part-time work. And so we're recommending at some point, 3 full-time preschool TAs go back in for a cost of about $77,000 without fringes. I would then remove some of the part-time money from the preschool. That since we're not getting the part-timers, we're putting on full-timers. I would take a couple of those part-timers out. So $18,306 to apply to the $77,000, but still an addition of about $60,000, $59,000. The sub pool I had budgeted at $272,000. We have 16 subs on that are 12 of them I understand are working 4 days a week, 1 3 days a week, and 3 2 days a week. If I do that calculation, I would need a budget of $302,400. So I'm $32,000 short there. Now, 12 of the subs, because I'm looking for things to replace the 255 Chromebook money with, I'm recommending that we push the 12 full-time substitutes for the weeks October through December into the grant for a total of about $84,000. So we would now push some of the subs, and they're going to have to do weekly time and attendance attestations that they're being paid from the grant, and the rest of it that we're working out now with HR. IXL, which I didn't have, I had in the regular assistant superintendent's budget, was $138,622. I can throw 3 months of that into the grant now because that's new based on distance learning. So I would reduce that $138,622 by $37,207. I'm adding the glycol that we're buying into the grant and making the argument that we would not be doing the glycol if we didn't have to keep windows and dampers and univents and all that stuff open during the winter. That could cause freeze ups if we don't do this type of stuff because of the air quality we have to maintain or whatever. So I'm adding the 150 in, and then in talking with our E&E and others, with the way we're going to have to probably run this winter with dampers and univents and stuff, they expect about a 25% increase in the gas bill. So I would put $100,000 into the gas bill at some point. So I'm not coming with you before these tonight.
So, Mr. Prignano, did we know that gas was going to increase 25%?
Well, I didn't have a number on it. I plan on. I think we're going to have to be coming back, often. As the year goes on, as things unfold and whatever. But anyhow, the things that I'm recommending there tonight, at some point I'll be back. As I try to find places for these things, would add about $193,000 to the budget. And so, just to be aware of these things, and at some point, now there's been some good news. We've gotten, there's going to be the governor's talking about a grant for COVID relief at capital expenditures in Cumberland, based on the number of cases you've had per 1,000 in the state, and based on that, if that is $4 million, it'll be spread out based on that formula Cumberland is gonna be receiving $87,000. And as you recall, some of the grants we've gotten from RIDE in the past, where the school committee had to sign, sign the grant documentation, and then we just send it in. That's all that's required for this, which is, so before November 12th, we'll have school committee members signing that application so we can get that 87,000. So if we're gonna need more, HEPA filters or other items related to COVID, it can't be cleaning supplies or PPE. It has to be capital type items, but at least we'll have 87,000 to go to there. And then Katie sent out a thing today that we had applied for a grant for substitutes, and it looks like we've been awarded some pretty good money there. I was thinking they'd give us $5,000, but they actually $84,000 for some subs. So those things we'll have to be creative with and work them into the budget to relieve other line items and pay for these things. So it's going to be all, until this thing really settles in and we know where we are, this is going to happen right along. But I figured, since I didn't have an October report yet, because we just amended the budget a week or so ago and October isn't over, I would at least just mention these things tonight, and we'll see some of this stuff towards the end of the month.
Mr. Prignano, so I
Yeah.
get into the sheet late. Thank you, Mrs. Bernardo, for sending it to me.
Yeah.
It looks like, so after the charter recalculation from BVP and other charters, about 18,000 more for us, correct? That's what you
Right.
have?
Right, just about,
Okay.
yep, 18,012, it looks like, right? $12, $18,012.
Okay. Yep, it's
Yeah,
exactly.
because all the other charter schools, and I think that's because, we didn't know where we were really going to be at the beginning of the year, and BVP was plowing along until they got, derailed. They were going to go full. They were opening up full scale, right? And so I think people probably enrolled there, and now they're completely. I think they're home completely distance learning. If
Well, they have all that
With
extra
that.
money that they got also.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. That's a fight for another school committee member. My tenure on that is done. All right, any questions from Mr. Prignano? Any school committee members? Anyone?
No.
Mr. Fiorillo? Just
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Because I can't
I'm
see.
on.
Hi, Alex. As of right now, how are we tracking the rest of the year? Are we expecting to be very close? Are we expecting to be in the red, the black?
Well, I haven't done an October report yet, so I can't really say. There are a lot of things that we know no longer we're going to chase, at least for this year, like healthcare, for example, because of the new group we're in. We've got a set premium arrangement, so we don't have to worry about healthcare right now. I think a lot of it's going to play out with how much do we still really don't know how much we're going to spend, because schools just opened, with cleaning supplies and hand sanitizer and that type of stuff. People seem to be using it like, wildfire right now, but will that calm down, or will we even be in school, 3 months from now? Who even knows? So there are some unknowns there, but I would say right now that, with these line items, these are the areas of concern that I have right now that I've listed before you. Other than that, I think, we're pretty good right now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other members? Mr. Collins? All right, next item on the agenda, Sedesco Food Service Report. Mr. Prignano, Facilities Report. Do we have anything there?
Not facilities.
Sean is here.
I know we have food service.
Okay, Shauna, hello, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Perfect. I also invited Kristen Morello, who is our district manager for Sedexo. She's actually on the call also. I'm going to try to share my screen right now. Mike, if you could let me do that, please.
Should be all set.
Great. All right. So I just wanted to provide just a quick update to the school committee members about the financial standings for the first quarter. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So as you know, July and August, obviously we did not have any type of a program. So that's why there is, slash marks down here. So September was our first real operating month where we saw some revenue coming through. Just to remind everybody that when school started, there were a small amount of pods in each building, which allowed us to be able to provide breakfast and lunch. So we did have a small number, as you can see, the revenue dollars from breakfast and from a small amount of snack and lunch. We also support Rise in Woonsocket, whom has been in 100% enrollment since the beginning of September. So that has certainly helped us have those numbers kind of driven up a little bit. So we did have a revenue of almost 17,000 for the month of September. You can see that can everybody see that? Okay, perfect. The top of the screen is obviously our expenses. We did, just like every other school, start up with a low inventory, which we had to replenish. Also, again, purchasing a lot of PPE by ways of sanitizer and gloves and things like that. Other paper products, we're doing a lot of packing out this year with those to-go meals that we did in September. So we will see a trend in our paper costs throughout the year. So our gross department cost was around 29,000. So that actually puts us at a loss of almost 13, which is a little bit more of a loss than we see usually in the beginning of the year. Those of you that have been, school committee members throughout the last few years notice that we start to actually make money in the bigger months like October and through January. And that's when we see a lot of revenue coming from this program. But again, September isn't really a good month to judge because obviously we didn't have any in-person enrollment. As we're still in October, we have a few weeks of the hybrid model, which again has brought more students into buildings, and we are actively providing a in-service program and also a virtual program, which is geared towards grab and go for our students. So we are ramping up that and trying to be creative with utilizing the in-person students to take meals for the next day. So again, increasing our meal counts. But questions that anyone has first on this document?
Mr. Chair, I do.
Pleasure of the committee, Mr. DeMonica.
Shauna, you show no income from July and August. Did we not do, bag meals for students to pick up in the community?
We actually had that program from March till the end of school, which was the middle of June. We just did not have the volume that we expected. We were doing about 50 meals a day.
Right.
And we actually reduced our servings to 3 times per week and got about 100. So we weren't seeing an increase. So we decided that it would be in the best interest of the district to unfortunately close that program for July and August and retain some of the labor and expenses along with purchasing food and purchasing bagged paper products.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you,
Oh, just one more question, Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeMonica.
Shauna, does Rise owe us any money still from last year?
So I did actually look into that. There is a pending negative balance that they are.
I'm not hearing anything, Mr. Chair. Am I still on?
You are, yes.
Paul, can you hear me?
I lost you.
Oh, you froze. Your video froze, Mr. DeMonica. You're back.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Cox. So I didn't get that answer from Shauna.
So it is still pending. We have obviously had a little bit of a setback with COVID and all of that, but there is it is on its way. It's about a $6,000 that we're anticipating of a negative balance from last year.
Okay, thank you.
Shauna, are all these folders on the bottom of your spreadsheet related to Cumberland? 5-year trend?
Yes. So it goes through, the different quarters and it all populates to this sheet.
Anything you'd like to show us there real quick? Anything interesting that we'd find?
Not at this time. I mean, it's really hard to compare last year to this year at this date because we obviously had 100% enrollment starting in September. It's just really difficult to compare those type of numbers. But what I did want to share, what I spoke to Alex about earlier today, was I just wanted to bring everyone's to the attention that we are approved for the summer food service program, which is something that obviously the federal government has during the summer to provide free meals to students. So as all of you know, the USDA has granted for the entire year, they just gave the final okay. So for the entire year, we will be on the summer food service program, which is at a higher federal reimbursement rate. And I just wanted to put some numbers together to show that we are actually anticipating that we will be getting a higher reimbursement per meal. And you can see some of the numbers right here. The National School Lunch Program, this is a free status student. These are the reimbursement rates that we get for breakfast and for lunch. And under the summer food service program, these are the rates for breakfast and lunch. So there is about $1 difference. So that is, certainly good news for us. And we're really happy that we were approved to run this program.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Hearing none. Thank you, Shauna.
Great. Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you, you as well. Kristen, anything to add?
No, I just wanted to say hi. I didn't get to meet some of you in person recently, but I've had the pleasure of meeting Alex many times and Superintendent Mitchell, but just wanted to let you see my face. If you have any questions or need me for anything, feel free to reach out. I know Sean is working really hard to get people back to work and get the program rolling. So if anybody has any questions for me, feel free. I just thought I'd listen in.
I hear a little bit of a Boston accent.
Yeah, I grew up right over the border. I grew up in Foxborough. So
In Foxborough, yes.
yeah, I was trained at Newport Creamery.
Newport Creamery.
Yeah. So kind of
Excellent.
like a Rhode Island girl. I'm right on that border. But yeah,
Nice
if anybody
meeting you.
Pardon me?
Nice meeting you. Thank you for joining our meeting.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
thank you for having me. Anytime you need anything, feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Enjoy your meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Next
Bye-bye.
item on the
Good luck to you.
agenda. Did I lose everyone? Next item on the agenda. Discussion and a vote to approve resolutions SCR 2020-08 Alpha Best Education Contract Amendment. Mr. Mitchell or Mr. Prignano, do you want to weigh in on this?
Either one of us can. Bob, you want me to?
Bob, you're on mute.
Alex, why don't you go ahead, please?
Sure. The revisions we've made in this contract as part of really stem from two different reasons. Part of the changes in the contract or revisions have to do with this being a year where, we had no idea, or Alphabet even had no idea what they might be able to run it for a program. They asked for a 1-year hiatus in our contract. We had an amount where they had to, no matter how many students they had to pay a minimum amount. And they asked if that could be waived for this year based on not knowing what could happen. The minimum amount was a significant dollar amount, which they could have found themselves way under depending on what happened. So for this 1 year, Mr. Mitchell and I thought that only seemed fair and have allowed that. Next year, they go back to having to pay the minimum amount if, in fact, we're back to normal. The other revision is due to a different reason, and with the town now selling bond anticipation notes on our $83 million, that triggers a review of school department contracts. The school department, since our buildings and improvements were built with tax exempt dollars in the past, we can't be running businesses for certain dollar amounts of stuff for profit and that type of stuff because tax exempt money was used to build a school. So they reviewed all our contracts, the Exo Food, Alphabet, even the pool contract, no issue. Sodexo, I know their legal counsel and bond counsel have talked about a couple of things that bond counsel would like to insert into their contract. Not exactly sure where that is. I'll have to check with the bond counsel. Kelly might even know, because I'm sure bond counsel probably works through her at the town, but we'll have to check on the Sodexo one. But in this one, they wanted to add the revision on, I guess it's page 2. You see the no inconsistent tax provision, and you can read there what it says. And what it has to do is making sure that there's language in this contract that would not jeopardize bonds from being, issuing the bonds, not being able to issue the bonds tax exempt and have to issue them at a taxable rate. So those are the revisions for 2 different reasons, and they're incorporated in this amendment before you.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell, your recommendation?
I think the appropriate thing to do is to approve the amendments to the contract.
Pleasure of the fiscal committee
Mr.
members?
Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Mr. Monica?
So if we're gonna change the fee structure, how do we determine what they will pay us during the year? Is it based on per student, per day? How are we gonna do this?
It's always, that will not remain they've paid us in the past will remain the same, but there was some protection there that guaranteed a certain minimum amount due to the district.
Right.
So we're just removing the minimum amount. Like if
All
they
right.
had 400 or 500 students before, and all of a sudden they went down to 150 because of the pandemic, that minimum amount could have put them way underwater.
Right.
So it's just for this year, it's just that minimum amount. They will still pay
Okay.
the existing rates that were built in through the contract per student.
All right, and the second question, Mr. Chair, has
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Adams reviewed this and given his approval?
Mr. Adams?
don't know if he's
Sorry
here.
about that. I am. I looked at it. I didn't. Gosh, I'm dark, huh? Jeepers creepers!
All right.
I'm like Alex Brignano here. I did look at it, but I did not note some of the things. I'm looking at it right now. I did not note some of the things Alex was talking about in terms of protection. I don't know where that's in this amendment. But in any event, I did look at it. I didn't see anything that jumped out at me that was super problematic or anything like that. The whole revision number 3 about no inconsistent tax provision and all that stuff seemed to really relate more to Alphabest than to us. Whether
Okay.
we're going to have a bunch of people on their board serving on the school committee, like we
No, that I
can't have
understand.
that, but stuff like that.
Someone else
Okay.
have a question or something?
I have a question, Mr. Salvatore.
Mr. Fiorillo?
Who wrote the amendment?
Good question.
I believe that Alphabet had their attorney work with bond counsel, town's bond counsel, to make revisions that we wanted. And then there was a revision on that we talked about that had nothing to do with bonds, about, the minimum payment amount.
Okay, so was Mr. Adams involved in this when we first got it, or even Mrs. Duncanson?
I was not. I don't know if I'm muted or not, but I was not. I got it. Paul sent it to me, I think. And I looked
can't
at it.
remember.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, I don't know what I did yesterday. But I got it and I looked at it, and it, I didn't have the context for it, to be perfectly honest with you, because I don't have the full contract. I mean, I don't see any major problems. I have to say, I don't see this business about no minimum or whatever Alex was talking about. I don't know which section of this is. I just saw something that said it's understood that students enrolled in a school operated by the Cumberland School Department may be provided with before and after school day care under this agreement, which I understood to mean that it was only going to be kids who matriculate at the Cumberland School Department, as opposed to kids who might matriculate at like a private school or a non-traditional public like a charter or something like that. That was what I understood.
I guess I'm confused on why the town bond council is working on an Alpha Best education contract amendment. Alex, you said something?
Yeah, because there are certain guidelines that in contracts that we and have entered into. There are certain guidelines that have to be met in order to keep bonds from being taxable. And so the revision, so Dan Waugh, who's the town's bond counsel, worked with Alpha Best's attorney to come up with this language. Now, at the same time, and Bob can jump in, Bob was working with the lady who now is, I can't think of her name, who is the regional director for Alpha Best. And we talked about the no minimum, the getting away from the minimum amount for this 1 year. So there were two different things going on. Dan Waugh was working with their attorney on language that Dan Waugh wanted to see in the contract, and they were working with us on the no guaranteed payment amount for this year.
It sounds like I'm leaning towards maybe we table this so Mr. Adams can look at it a little bit more. Mr. Adams, any recommendation on that?
I really don't have a recommendation, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know that much about this contract. I don't see any conspiracy theory though, but
Okay.
if there's no urgency to do it and the committee wants me to do it, I'm happy to do it, but I don't know I don't know whether this is important that this gets done tonight from a school administration perspective. I just don't know the answer to that.
I'm going to recommend we do this, the fiscal committee votes on this, and then we'll decide to send it to the full committee if it passes and let the full committee weigh in on it. So pleasure.
And if Steve's going to be involved, what I'll do, Steve, is I'll forward you Dan Waugh's, the town bond council's email, and you can discuss it with him, and I can send you the contact information for the Alpha Best person if you're going to dig into this.
Yeah, that's terrific. I'm happy to be involved. It's up to you guys, obviously. That's great.
Mr. Chair, I think that Mr. Adams should be involved in every contract and every amendment.
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
So it'd be my recommendation that we just have Mr. Adams be given the Alpha Best contracts, which he should have in his possession.
Let's
And,
table it then. You want to make a motion to table?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table this to
Mr.
the
DeMonico
next
makes a
school committee.
motion to table SCR 2020-08, the Alpha Best Education Contract Amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Ayes have it. All right, let me just make a note here.
thank you.
Mr. Salvatore, I just have one additional
Oh,
question.
Mr. Fiorillo, go ahead.
Why are we worrying about the guaranteed amount so early in the year? I know it's going to be an issue, but we'll probably have the same issue with Sodexo Food, which we normally do during the winter or even the spring. Once we start seeing actual numbers, and then we make the adjustments then. Why are we doing it so early?
Mr. Brignano?
I'm not following. I'm not following the question.
I know in the last year or two, there was a concern with Sodexo Food not being able to make their minimum payments.
Oh, yeah.
But we waited till much later in the school year to figure it all out and then make a decision then. Why are we doing it so early for Alpha Best?
Well, I think it's when they come to us. I think the Sodexo, there was an issue. Remember, there were 5 or 6 items that they were trying to change in their contract that kind of lingered out there for a while. So we finally got those resolved, and Steve and one of his colleagues, I think Hillary is her name, helped us through that with Sodexo. This is at the beginning of the year where schools start, and I think the vendor, Alpha Best, wanted to know their first quarter payment. They wouldn't be responsible for some, large number if in fact they had very few kids enrolled. So we've been working with them right along, trying to find out what type of program we would even be running, if we'd be running a program. There was a lot that conversation that Bob and others had with Alpha Best during the summer. And so, and with bond counsel, with the selling of the notes, that piece has also come up with it. So it's all kind of come dovetailed together at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Fiorello, anything else to add?
Yeah, I hate to be a
No.
nitpicker, but
Go ahead.
what happens if they meet all their goals and they are able to actually make those payments later in the year? The amendment.
The minimum payment, if they had enough kids enrolled, that the minimum payment was a minimum payment. You know, they always paid more than that. It was just some type of number that the school department could count on. So if they do have normal type enrollment and stuff like that, it wouldn't come into play anyhow, because the number of kids times the amounts would be higher than the minimum payments. See what I'm saying?
Not really, because I read it that we're waiving it for the year.
Yeah, the minimum payments. So if they end up with 5 kids for the year, they're not going to pay $200,000 or whatever that minimum. I don't have the contract open in front of me either.
Okay,
But-
I understand now.
You know, and if they have, and if the minimum payments calculates up to 70 kids and they have more than 70 kids, it doesn't come into play. See what-
Do we get a list of how many kids they have?
I haven't gotten it yet. It just started,
Okay, thank you.
but we can find out. We can call and find out how many kids have registered so far. I'd like to know anyhow, because I'm going to calculate. When I do my October report and I calculate rentals and that type of stuff, I want to have an idea of what type of revenue they're generating the first quarter here. And, I would kind of use that number projected for the year at this time,
Gotcha. All right, thank you, Mr. Pagano. Next
You're
item
welcome.
on the agenda, CHS activity reports. Nothing. Public comment. Anyone from the public like to speak? Mr. Chandler, if you see anyone raising their hand.
I have a Carrie Smith with her hand raised. She'd like to ask a
Hey,
question.
hello, Mrs. Smith.
Hello, Mr. Salvatore.
What can we advise you
just-
on tonight?
Just a quick reconfirmation. Sodexo is stating that the USDA program will be continued through the end of the school year. I just want to make sure that all of our schools are all qualified for that, and that we'll be publicly announcing that very soon. Because I know there was
I
a
think
lot of
we-
people that were confused with filling out the federal assistance forms versus the free lunch.
I can ask Mr. Pagano if you'd like to weigh in on this. If not, we can
Sure.
write it down and get back to you, Mr. Pagano.
Sure. At first, all of our schools qualified except community. And so, which kind of made sense to me with when a lot of it's measured by number of free and reduced students and the rest of it. But in talking with the Sodexo people, they pointed out there were a couple of schools in other districts that were kind of like community, and they pressed the issue and were able to get them over the goal line. So we did the same thing. We called, we contacted RIDE, and there were some hoops to jump through and stuff like that, but we eventually got community approved. We made the point that North Cumberland Middle School's approved. It's the same feeding ground, community children go to North Cumberland. And, how do you tell parents that, 8th grader can eat for free, but your 2nd grader can't, that type of thing. So anyhow, all the schools are qualified at this time. And, but we still don't know, I've asked the question to RIDE. Part of the formula calculation, the second piece is you get 40% additional for free and reduced students. If now all the kids are qualified, obviously they're not going to give us 40% on all 4,500 students. So how are they going to do that? And if it's and I would imagine they're going to, still make sure that people, even though they don't have to, are enrolling in the program. That's our fear, that if people know that they're eating for free, they won't enroll. And so we've sent emails out, and I've actually sent a letter under my letterhead to everyone who was on the program last year, telling them of that, just that. At that time when I sent that letter out, this program was only going to run through December. So I wanted to make sure they enrolled so that in January they'd have no interruption. So You know, we've got to, you know, we don't know. And when I've asked RIDE how they're going to calculate this, they at this time don't know. So that's something that they're, because this stuff is all new to everyone. They don't even know how they're going to handle it yet at RIDE. So
Yeah.
we're going to have to stay on top of it and make sure we get people enrolled that should be enrolled.
Mr. Chairman,
We just had,
um,
we just had, you know, 40-something kids come in from other districts. Well, those kids that come in from other districts, you get quite a bump on them, on the amount they pay us if they're free and reduced. So my office has now sent letters to all those 40 children with an application asking them to fill it out if they need to. So, you know, we just sent them out this week. I don't know what that's gonna, what the results of that will be, but we're sending letters out, we're letting people know, but you know, we can't take this lightly. We're taking a hit this year already.
Right.
If
Mr.
only we
Prickman.
have only 400 kids sign up, we're gonna be out of business.
All right, thank you, Mr. Prignano. Mr. Mitchell.
just very quickly, I just want everybody to know in my weekly communication, that was in the weekly communication that everyone would receive a free lunch for the remainder of the year. And the week before, at that particular time, we knew that everyone was going to be receiving a free lunch through December, and we included all that information about free and reduced lunch and, you know, how it might be advantageous for the school department to have folks that were receiving free and reduced lunch to fill out that application again. And we actually provided the application. So I just want to let everybody know that that information has been provided to everyone. I don't know, if people actually, read every bulleted item in that communication, but the information is there, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, public comment?
See anybody with their hand up at this time?
Mrs. Smith, only one question tonight?
I was letting you off easy. I thought
last
since it's
meeting.
your, yeah, and my last one is a public person possibly too.
Yes, that's right.
You don't know what you're getting into.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. I won't be able to fill Mr. Salvatore's shoes though.
Oh, no, believe me.
Well, he's not here anyways.
Okay, next item. Thank you, Mrs. Smith, and good luck to you as well. Next item on the agenda is to adjourn the committee.
I will make a motion to adjourn. I would just like to say thank you to Mrs. Bernardo and Mr. Salvatore for the 2 years that they were on the Fiscal Finance Subcommittee, and it certainly has been lively, but we've gotten the job done. So thank you for the time that you put in on the school committee.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to vote nay. I'd like to stay in fiscal. But it passes.
I think the mayor did that on his way out, so.
I think he did. All right, everyone. See you on executive.
All right,
Thank
folks,
you.
we're gonna go
Yeah.
right into executive session. Thank you.
Thank you.